You likely imagine it requires months, perhaps years of focused visualization, dedicated effort, and profound healing to alter your reality. You might believe that significant breakthroughs are rewards earned only after enduring extended periods of struggle. Perhaps you feel alignment only arrives once every spiritual practice has been diligently followed and every technique mastered. But what if the actual transformation, the genuine quantum leap, occurs in a moment so subtle that it often escapes most people's notice entirely? There exists an imperceptible pattern, invisible to the untrained gaze, that manifests just before an individual's life undergoes a profound change. This shift doesn't occur when one exerts more effort or tries harder, but rather when an internal cessation takes place, a stopping of the forcing, a cessation of doubt, an end to the incessant chasing. It is in that precise moment that the universal field responds. Within this presentation, we will unveil the specific frequency that triggers a quantum shift and illuminate why the inherent simplicity of this process is precisely what the ego struggles to accept. You will discover the energetic proficiencies that hold greater significance than any strategic planning. We will examine the indicators that signal you are on the precipice of transitioning to different timelines and understand why what feels like a breakdown is not indicative of failure, but rather an initiation. However, let us commence with something you have likely experienced, but perhaps never articulated: the resistance to ease. Consider that moment when circumstances begin to flow effortlessly and a sense of fear surfaces, or that instance when you possess a deep inner certainty, yet your analytical mind demands concrete evidence. You have felt this, the inherent tension between the clarity of your soul and the survival mechanisms of your ego. Our contemporary world is captivated by struggle. Effort is lauded, and complexity is revered. If something appears too straightforward, it is often deemed incorrect. If it is attained with relative ease, it is frequently perceived as undeserved. Yet, the quantum field does not acknowledge the intensity of your labor. It responds to the clarity you possess, to the purity of your energetic frequency. And it is within simplicity that clarity is most often discovered. The inherent challenge lies in the fact that simplicity directly threatens the constructed self. If the process is simple, one might question the purpose of all the preceding struggle. If it is simple, what does that imply about the identity meticulously built around trying, fixing, and proving? Simplicity dissolves the drama, and in the absence of drama, there is nothing left to conceal oneself behind. This is precisely why a majority of individuals unconsciously undermine their own transformations. It is not because they are flawed, but because they are apprehensive of the profound quietude that truth embodies. They anticipate a dramatic event, a spectacular display, but instead receive stillness. They yearn for fireworks, but the field offers silence. Yet, it is within that silence that the fundamental shift resides. The quantum field is perpetually a mirror. It is not awaiting your next affirmation. It is resonating with your current identity. The moment you relinquish the compulsion to force and simply embody your truth, the feedback loop undergoes a transformation. You cease anticipating external validation for your internal state. You stop adjusting your frequency to accommodate your circumstances. Instead, you begin to maintain your core vibration, irrespective of external conditions. This distinction delineates manifesting from shifting. Manifesting frequently implies the creation of something from a perceived void. Shifting, on the other hand, involves becoming the version of yourself that already exists in an alternate present moment. The sole impediment separating you from that alternate timeline is your frequency filter, not the passage of time, not the exertion of effort, but purely your energetic signature. Therefore, allow me to pose a question. What if your shift is not difficult, but merely unfamiliar? What if you have been attempting to intellectually navigate into a new timeline, rather than intuitively feeling your way there? And what if the true impediment is not your external environment, but your ingrained attachment to complexity? In the subsequent segment of this discourse, we will elucidate why most individuals falter in stabilizing their energetic signal and how your inherent blind spots might be generating interference that the universal field cannot interpret. You will discover the subtle mechanisms through which you resist resonance and learn how to effectively transmit from a place that the universe can finally comprehend. Let us continue this exploration, for this very simplicity serves as your gateway. And once you truly grasp it, everything begins to transform. If the quantum shift is indeed so straightforward, then why do so few individuals actually experience it? Why does it feel as though an invisible barrier perpetuates your cycles within the same emotional patterns, even when you possess superior understanding? Why do your endeavors reach a plateau just as you perceive yourself nearing your objective? The reason is that simplicity demands something far more challenging than mere effort. It requires heightened awareness, and awareness, when stripped of the perceived security of complexity, can be profoundly unsettling. When circumstances are intricate, you possess the ability to attribute blame to the tools, the methodology, or the process itself. When the situation is simple, however, there is no place to retreat. The spotlight inevitably turns inward, leaving you with a single crucial question: am I truly prepared for this transformation? Let us first address what impedes the majority of individuals from maintaining the appropriate energetic frequency: blind spots. These are not inherent flaws. Rather, they are ingrained patterns that are too close for you to readily perceive. They are habitual emotional responses that have become normalized, ingrained narratives that have been repeated so frequently that they are now mistaken for absolute truth. However, here is a critical insight. The quantum field does not respond to your conscious desires. It responds to your unconscious essence. Consequently, while your conscious mind may be visualizing abundance, your energetic frequency might still be calibrated to scarcity. This is not due to a lack of effort, but rather because you have neglected to scrutinize your default energetic signal. Take a moment to truly feel into this. What is your dominant broadcast when no one is observing you? What is the prevailing emotional climate of your internal world when you are not actively engaged in self-improvement practices? That is your authentic frequency. That is what the universal field is receiving. This is where the initial crucial mastery skill emerges: self-awareness. And I am not referring solely to the practices of journaling or daily contemplation. I am advocating for the cultivation of a form of awareness that observes your thoughts as they arise, without judgment or the compulsion to alter them. It is the type of awareness that recognizes when you are reacting from a place of self-preservation and consciously chooses not to succumb to it. The subsequent shift is even more demanding: radical responsibility. This is the stage where your energetic frequency begins to cure itself. It is not about assigning blame to yourself or every current. Instead, it involves claiming ownership of everything you are emitting, particularly those aspects you would prefer to disown. When you transition from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What is this revealing about my inherent resonance?" the universal field begins to reflect you in a distinct manner. Victimhood may be vocal but lacks coherence, while ownership, though quiet, possesses an undeniable magnetic pull. Following this, we arrive at the skill that amplifies all others: accountability states. These are the vibrational anchors to which you consistently return, regardless of the challenges life presents. The majority of individuals wait for external circumstances to validate their internal state. However, those who engage in quantum shifting maintain their frequency until external reality is compelled to mirror it. Accountability signifies showing up for your internal state, even when it is inconvenient, even when all external evidence suggests you are misguided, and even when you feel as though no progress is being made. Finally, we encounter the most paradoxical of all: detachment from perception. We are conditioned to categorize everything. This is good, that is bad. This indicates proximity to success. That signifies failure. But what if your moment of perceived setback is, in reality, the final phase preceding a significant shift? What if what feels like a breakdown is merely the disintegration of your old energetic frequency? Detachment does not imply an absence of feeling. It signifies an absence of judgment or labeling. It means allowing experiences to flow through you without assigning them a definitive verdict. Because the quantum field operates without linear progression, the darkest hour might precisely be the calibration necessary for the light to manifest. You are not merely acquiring the ability to think differently. You are learning to sustain your vibration as if it were the ultimate truth. And that endeavor requires a considerable amount of courage. It is far simpler to seek distraction through various methods and affirmations. It is considerably more challenging to sit in stillness and honestly acknowledge, I have been cycling through these patterns because I am still filtering life through outdated narratives. The quantum shift is not inherently complex, but it is precise. It cuts directly through illusion. It exposes those aspects of yourself that still require chaos to feel alive, and poses the question, will you finally allow these elements to rest? In the ensuing section, we will delve into the precise moment preceding the shift, that peculiar energetic tension that accumulates as your old identity begins to dissolve and your new timeline draws near. Most individuals misinterpret this phase as failure. However, if you understand what to observe, you will recognize it as the threshold of your breakthrough. Remain connected, because what follows is where your old timeline concludes and your authentic frequency commences its reign. There exists a moment, subtle, disorienting, and frequently misunderstood, that almost invariably precedes a true quantum shift. It is the instant when the previous timeline begins to loosen its grip, yet the new one has not yet fully anchored. You experience a sense of suspension, as if standing in a transitional corridor between two distinct realities. The past no longer feels relevant, the future remains indistinct, and an internal urgency compels you to take action. However, in reality, you are precisely on the verge of a significant transition. This liminal space is sacred, though it rarely feels that way. It often manifests as confusion, exhaustion, misalignment, or even despair. You may feel as though you are failing, as if the path you were once so confident about has abruptly vanished, as if your vision is disintegrating rather than blossoming. And if you lack understanding of what is transpiring, you will misinterpret this as a signal to retreat, to diminish your efforts, to try even harder, or, most detrimentally, to doubt your own capabilities. But here is the unvarnished truth. This is not a collapse. This is a recalibration. Prior to any quantum transition, your energetic field must release its current pattern of coherence. Consider it akin to detuning from one radio frequency before locking on to another. There is a period of static in between. That static may feel like disorientation, like emotional noise, like an impulse to flee, but it is not a warning sign. It is a threshold. The prior frequency is no longer capable of sustaining your subsequent chapter. This is why it may feel as though circumstances are unraveling. What is genuinely occurring is this: the energy that held your previous identity together is now disassembling. The beliefs, habits, and energetic cycles that defined your previous self are losing their potency. And in the absence of that potent energy, your ego finds itself without anything to grasp. Consequently, it experiences panic, manifesting as fear, doubt, and restlessness. This is not an error. It is the ego's attempt to draw you back into the familiar cycle. This critical juncture, immediately preceding the shift, is where the majority of individuals cease their efforts. It is not because the universal field is withholding its consent, but because they misinterpret the inherent friction as failure rather than as the necessary friction of transformation. The reality is, if the situation feels unstable, you are approaching your objective. If circumstances appear uncertain, you are nearly there. This is because what you are truly experiencing is your frequency frequency, shedding everything that no longer aligns with your trajectory. This is why the skill of detachment is so profoundly essential. If you prematurely judge this transitional phase, you will assign it a meaning that propels you backward. You will label it as incorrect, deem it stagnant, and interpret it as irrefutable proof that nothing is progressing, and the moment you do so, you inadvertently restabilize the old pattern. However, if you can maintain your center, not through forceful effort, but through mindful awareness, something begins to shift subtly beneath the surface. The chaos gradually subsides, the sharp edges dissolve, and you begin to feel your way forward, rather than attempting to force your path. That is when you become magnetic. This magnetism is not a product of effort, but rather of having ceased expending energy through resistance. Immediately preceding the shift, your nervous system is undergoing a process of learning to accommodate greater energetic power. And that power does not originate from intensity, but from a state of coherence. When you consciously choose to remain present amidst uncertainty without attaching labels, your energetic field begins to organize itself around your inherent stillness. That is the precise moment the quantum field initiates its response. So what can you do within this transitional space? In the conventional sense, very little. This is not the time for fixing, hustling, or pushing. This is the time for attunement. Breathe deeply into the discomfort. Observe the internal narratives that arise. Soften the grip of the past timeline. Your role is not to forcibly create a new reality. Your role is to render yourself receptive to it. That constitutes the genuine shift. Not exerting control over the outcome, but surrendering into the vibration that already encompasses it. Subsequently, we will meticulously deconstruct the precise mechanisms by which the universal field interprets your energetic signal and clarify why what you believe you are transmitting might not be what the field is actually receiving. We will also investigate methods to purify your resonance, enabling you to synchronize with the existence that is already awaiting you within the quantum realm. You do not need to exert more effort. You simply need to sustain your signal, particularly when nothing seems to align, and most importantly, especially then. That is the juncture when the portal opens, when reality begins to bend, and when your transformation becomes an undeniable inevitability. Let us now focus on energetic signals. You have likely encountered the notion that the quantum field responds to frequency, not spoken words. However, here is a crucial point that many fail to grasp. Your energy is in a constant state of broadcasting, regardless of your conscious intent. And what you are broadcasting is not your intention, but your embodiment. You can declare your readiness, engage in affirmations, practice meditation, and even meticulously visualize every detail of your desired timeline. Yet, if beneath all these conscious efforts, your signal is permeated with doubt, urgency, fear, or a need for validation, that is the true message the universal field is receiving. And the field, it does not respond to language, it mirrors resonance. So what does this truly signify? It means that your internal landscape is your sole viable strategy. Your nervous system serves as the instrument that tunes the quality of your life. And coherence, that profound, unwavering alignment between thought, emotion, and internal state, is the quintessential signature that the quantum field attentively perceives. Coherence does not necessitate perfection. It demands presence. Consider it analogous to tuning a radio. If you are even slightly off the correct frequency, all you will receive is static. You might discern a spoken word here, a fragment of a melody there, but it will be disjointed and distorted. The same principle applies to your energetic field. When your frequency is saturated with internal contradictions, desiring something while simultaneously disbelieving its possibility, asking for it without truly expecting to receive, speaking about it without genuinely feeling it, your signal is transmitted unclearly and incoherently. And incoherence elicits one definitive response from the universal field: delay. This is why quantum shifting is not about intensifying your actions, it is about purifying your energetic signal. And purification does not involve suppressing your emotions. It involves aligning them. It means fully owning your energy to such an extent that there is no discernible division between your intention and your embodiment. However, here lies the paradox. Most individuals attempt to force coherence. They endeavor to intellectually engineer a feeling. They meticulously analyze their vibration, excessively process their internal obstacles, and manage their internal state as if it were a project. But coherence cannot be achieved through control. It emerges from surrender. You cannot feign resonance. You cannot intellectually navigate your way into magnetic alignment. You must feel your way there by gracefully embracing the truth of who you already are. So, what cultivates this elevated level of resonance, clarity, stillness, and honesty? It is the conscious choice to embody what you desire, not in a performative manner or through delusion, but with a sense of calm certainty. This is the energetic signal that the quantum field acknowledges. It is the internal declaration of, I already am, I already possess, I already resonate, not because it is physically present, but because it is fundamentally true. And this is the juncture at which your energetic field begins to shift, not through effort or striving, but through attunement. When your nervous system begins to place trust in your inherent frequency, it stabilizes. And when your signal stabilizes, your external reality can finally organize itself around it. Therefore, here is the pivotal moment. Comment with the phrase, I am the shift. Let this declaration serve as your anchor, not as an outward proclamation to the universe, but as an internal acknowledgement of what already exists within you. Utter it not to convince others, but to confirm for yourself. Because when you speak from a place of embodiment, the universal field actively listens, and when the field listens, reality inevitably transforms. Now let us decode the precise mechanics of how the universal field mirrors your state, how your attention functions as a selective mechanism, how coherence becomes a command, and why effort is demonstrably the least effective method for generating genuine change. What you will come to understand is this: you do not shift reality. You shift into the specific version of yourself that already resides there. And that crucial shift, it commences at this very moment. Now that you have experienced the profound truth of coherence and the inherent power of resonance, it is time to explore precisely how the quantum field actively responds. Because if you have ever pondered why some intentions seem to manifest instantaneously while others linger indefinitely in the realm of possibility, the answer is this: the field does not reward mere desire. It reflects your dominant vibrational frequency, and that frequency is dictated by a singular factor, the consistent locus of your attention. Let us elaborate on this further. The quantum field is boundless. Every conceivable version of yourself already exists within it. Every potential outcome is already encoded, patiently awaiting not creation, but observation. The observer effect, a fundamental principle in quantum mechanics, dictates that subatomic particles do not coalesce into tangible matter until they are measured, focused upon, and thus collapsed from a wave of probability into a definite form. This implies that your attention is not merely a passive act. It is fundamentally constructive. It actively selects which version of reality is brought forth. This is precisely why quantum shifting is not about controlling outcomes. It is about selecting them through focused attention and stabilizing that selection through your internal state. Most individuals fail to recognize that their attention is fragmented. They might contemplate abundance in the morning, then succumb to worries about scarcity in the afternoon, and ultimately drift off to sleep, enveloped in a cloud of doubt. This is not consistency. It is a chaotic broadcast. The universal field does not penalize such chaos. It simply reflects it. This is why the resulting outcomes often appear scrambled, delayed, and unclear. However, when your attention becomes a concentrated beam, when you learn to sustain your vision without actively chasing it, without requiring it, or without doubting its attainment, something extraordinary occurs. The potential timeline begins to orient itself around you. The individuals, resources, opportune moments, and even the minute decisions necessary for its manifestation align themselves, not through exertion, but through entrainment, through resonant connection. You are not forcing reality to transform, you are collapsing into the specific version of reality that is already vibrating at your precise frequency. But here lies a nuanced understanding that is seldom discussed. You do not achieve a shift through thought alone. You shift through identity. Your conscious thoughts may yearn for the shift, but your subconscious identity, the deep-seated, often unacknowledged emotional signature from which you operate, may still be attuned to the previous pattern. And if such a disconnect exists, the universal field will inevitably mirror your underlying identity, not your fleeting thought. This is where the internal work assumes a sacred significance. It is not viewed as a task to be completed, but as a process of returning to your authentic self. Every time you guide yourself back to a state of coherence, not by attempting to fix anything, but by remembering your inherent truth, you reinforce a new identity. This is not an identity you are striving to become, but one that already resides within you, patiently awaiting permission to lead. Therefore, ask yourself, who am I truly being in this present moment? Not in a performative capacity, not through outward effort, but in the authentic tone of my being, in my core truth, in my inherent stillness, because that version of yourself, the one already inhabiting the life you have been visualizing, is not merely waiting, it is readily available, and you access it not by reaching out, but by gracefully receiving. In our concluding segment, we will consolidate this entire journey. You will learn how to fully integrate quantum shifting as an organic process, transforming it from something you actively do into something you naturally live. We will also decipher the final key to stabilizing your newly embraced timeline, ensuring its permanence rather than its transient appearance. Remain engaged, because the shift is not an event occurring in the future, it is already unfolding. Let us bring everything to a conclusive understanding. You now comprehend that the quantum field does not respond to effort, it responds to coherence. It holds no regard for what you verbally profess to desire. It reflects what you consistently embody. And the shift itself is not located externally, it resides within you. It is simpler than anyone dares to believe, so much so that the ego frequently overlooks it, dismisses it, or attempts to overcomplicate it. But here is what those who genuinely achieve shifts, those who consciously inhabit new timelines, intrinsically understand. The simplicity is not a subterfuge, it is the fundamental truth. And the reason so few individuals manage to stabilize within their new reality is not because they are implementing the process incorrectly, but because they do not sustain their presence within the signal that enables it to solidify long enough. Let us state this unequivocally. You do not achieve a quantum shift by intensifying your actions. You shift by aligning with greater clarity, with enhanced calmness, and with profound truthfulness. You shift when you cease pursuing the version of yourself that already exists and instead begin to embody them. Now, this does not imply adopting a false pretense. It does not mean forcing happiness when you are experiencing grief. It signifies holding space for the complete spectrum of human experience without compromising your core identity. That is the essence of emotional mastery. That is the mark of energetic maturity. That is what the quantum field actively acknowledges. You are not here to chase after the shift. You are here to embody the individual who navigates transitions with effortless grace. And the moment you internalize this understanding, life ceases to be a pursuit and transforms into a mirror. That is when you navigate through reality with a distinct approach. Your energy precedes your physical presence into any room. You speak less, yet you are heard more profoundly. You inquire less, yet you receive more abundantly. This is not because you are manipulating the universal field, but because you have become the field itself, harmonized with its own essence. This is precisely why those adept at manifesting do not impart techniques. Instead, they impart emotional and energetic states. Their purpose is to help you experience a profound sense of an ancient truth already residing within your being. They do not introduce anything foreign. Rather, they unveil what is already present. Therefore, consider this your personal summons to recall your inherent essence, your true nature, in this very instant, that desired future state, the one characterized by clarity, tranquility, compelling allure, unwavering conviction, and complete harmony, is indeed accessible. It is not contingent upon external perfection, but rather on the fundamental decision to cease allowing your internal energetic signature to be dictated by your current surroundings. Embrace this as the pivotal transformation that brings lasting stability. Let this serve as the beacon to which you consistently return. Your aim should not be to demonstrate prowess, but to experience a profound sense of belonging. And if you have arrived at this juncture, you are already aware that this presentation transcends a mere visual medium. It is a potent, energetic exchange. Furthermore, a subtle yet undeniable aspect of your inner self has already begun its restructuring. If you experienced a resonance, if something felt profoundly right, if a realization dawned, then proceed to subscribe. This action is not merely for an upcoming presentation, but for the evolution of your very being. This platform is not simply a collection of content. It is a distinct, energetic frequency. Each individual who subscribes becomes a powerful signal to the universal energetic matrix. I am remembering my true identity. It is gratifying to have you here once more. You have perpetually embodied the transformative change. And now, the energetic field is also privy to this fundamental truth.